In a city rich with sports history, today these skyscrapers will be the backdrop.
This is what we've been waiting on.
This is awesome.
NASCAR takes over Grant Park.
Everyone's coming to see what's going on with this spectacle called NASCAR.
Doesn't get any better for us right here.
It is truly an unreal event.
The fans are out, the excitement, you can feel it here in Grant Park.
The vibe is so intense, it's enough to give you goosebumps.
The skyscrapers in the background and Lake Michigan alongside the racetrack.
Everybody's in for a treat when these cars come down to these corners.
The teams have worked hard to get to this point.
All right, boys, we know what we got to do today.
I can't believe this is real. We are standing inside a world-class 12-turn road course.
Well, have some fun, boys. It's going to be a good one. Do what you guys do.
NASCAR is racing in the streets of Chicago.
Hey race fans, welcome to Around the Track presented by Moultrie Mobile. I'm Kim Coon alongside Ryan Flores, and we both survived a record 5 overtime restarts.
And a rain delay. These races lately are starting to feel like endurance races. I've never done endurance racing, but this is what it feels like. But I was happy to see my buddy Joe Logano end his winless streak and punch his way into the playoffs.
Sure, and then as we look at the other series that raced, we had Christian Eckes leading flag to flag. That was pretty incredible. And then John Hunter Nemechek taking home the Xfinity Series win.
Yeah, John Hunter came home. He was like in a swarm of cars. And to lead every single lap of a race is that's no easy task. That was very tough. But good on those guys. Congratulations to them. And there's a ton of racing to look forward to this weekend.
Yeah, we're headed to Chicago for the Chicago Street Course. And so let's take a look at the schedule. All the action from the Windy City.
Xfinity and Cup cars on deck this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. A lot going on. First, we start with Xfinity. We see a lot of Cup guys in the field this weekend. What are you looking forward to?
Well, we got to talk about the fact that there are 43 entries on the list for Xfinity Series. Only 38 can make the field. That means 5 teams are going home. And you think about how much it's going to mean for those teams to make it. There's so many eyes on this race because it's the Chicago Street Course. And now you've got 5 Cup guys that are in there trying to take their spots. So I think it's going to be a battle starting in qualifying.
Yeah, it's super exciting. I'm excited to see my buddy Joe Logano get back into the field. And we were talking earlier in the green room, Joe Logano, Ty Gibbs, Daniel Suarez, and John Hunter Nemechek, they were all looking to get some more laps to get in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But then you got Kyle Larson. He just wants the race.
I know.
So it's going to be super exciting to see what those guys can do in this packed field.
Yeah, so, some other names you need to pay attention to. Sage Karam in the field. Connor Mozak will be in the 88 car. And then Alon Day, we know him from the NASCAR Euro Series. And so I'm excited to see what they're able to do, too.
Yeah, and speaking of other series, there's a ton of other series racing around the country this weekend. Let's take a look at what we have on deck. The Car Store will be back in action at Caraway on Wednesday. Thursday night, the ARCA cars at one of my favorite short tracks in the country, Irwindale. It's always super exciting. NASCAR Mexico at Pueblo this weekend. Plus a full slate of short track racing on your Flow Racing app. But speaking of short track racing, Connor Hall took home the first leg of the Virginia Triple Crown in the Harley-Davidson 200 at South Boston.
Yeah, we previewed that last weekend. Not only did he take home the win, he did it from the back of the field, had to pick through the entire field to get that win. And then you think about the next leg of that Triple Crown. It's the end of this month. Langley Speedway, that is his home track. He has so much success there. So I think he's an early favorite.
Yeah, it was super exciting. There was a ton of good short track racing going on around the country. But I am pumped up to get to Chicago this weekend. Hopefully it stays dry. So let's take a look at the action we have on deck in Chicago.
It's kind of like going to a short track versus an intermediate. Watkins Glen, Sonoma, we call Sonoma kind of a short track, but Chicago is a lot of stop and go, really tight, not a whole lot to really miss wrecks or anything like that happening. So, yeah, it's probably the short track of the road courses.
A little bit tougher to prepare overall, just not having much data to go off of and all that stuff from the team side or driver's side. So, use the simulator to the best of your ability. Know that it's maybe not going to be perfect here and there, but at the same time, just taking every little bit of data that you have and trying to make the most of it.
Even with the rain that we had last year, it was still, in my opinion, the most fun event that we got to do. So in the city, you wake up, you walk downstairs, and you're in the garage area. So more than half the fans there were not race fans. So that's always fun because you feel like the sport is growing on a weekend like that.
And as we look at the Cup Series schedule for Chicago, we've got practice and qualifying on Saturday, the Cup race Sunday. Again, abbreviated practice for these teams. When you think about Chicago Street Course being a 12-turn over 2-mile road course, they're not going to be able to make a lot of laps. They'll be lucky if they get 5, 6, 7 laps in.
Yeah, we're going to see whose simulation is on point, whose tire model is really up to snuff. These guys, they're going to have to get up to speed really quick. We saw it at Sonoma, though, with the repave. They had a little bit more practice there, but it was one of our best races of the year. I'm excited to get to Chicago and see what these guys have in store.
And they have a new tire this year at Chicago than they did last. All right, let's take a look back at the action from the Chicago Street Course from 2023.
We are in Chicago's front yard. We knew it was going to be a record-setting weekend. The 75-year history of NASCAR, they have never run on a street course. Well, another record has been broken today.
Over 4 inches of rain today.
Breaking news, drivers to their car.
Green flag is in the air.
Boy, this track is such a challenge.
They're going to stack up.
There's a traffic jam.
Nowhere to go right here.
2 cars behind you are desperate for a win.
SVG trying to make history here in Chicago.
Checkered flag in the air. Shane Van Gisbergen wins on the streets of Chicago.
Welcome to the NASCAR Winners Club. That's very cool. Thank you, guys.
Well, the race this year has the potential to look very different from last year because the forecast right now looking good for Chicago. And you think about last year, the wet weather, NASCAR mandated single file restarts. That's not the case this year. We're going back to double file restarts. That course is so tight. I think we could see a lot of action.
Yeah, not only was it wet weather, it was a complete monsoon last year. The fact that we even got it in was great, but this race just, there's no runoff. It's going to be super challenging for the drivers. The other thing that Corey touched on earlier this week in Stacking Pennies was that this track with the crown in the roads, it's most road courses we go to are just flat, or they have either a cambered corner, an off cambered corner. This changes the whole race, and then the surface changes from concrete. The asphalt is bumpy, so I'm just really excited to see with a dry surface what these drivers are able to do.
Yeah, and you talked about the different surfaces, but then on top of that, potholes, the manhole covers, the paint that's on the road even creates a slick track or a slick course for these drivers. And then another thing that throws a kink in things is that pit stops are backwards. How does that affect you and the team?
Yeah, we've been practicing backwards pit stops all week. It's something that we used to only ever do once a year, and now there's a couple more races that we do it. Chicago's pretty cool. You're pitting, your pit box is kind of set up on a sidewalk, and then you're pitting, there's a makeshift pit wall, but then you're pitting on the road. So like we said, the crown of the road changes how the pit stops work. It's a little bit downhill. Last year was a different beast because it was rainy, but I'm excited to get there and compete. Backwards pit stops are always a little bit of a feather in your cap. You want to be better than everybody else at it.
Yeah, and if you want to get to victory lane, it's about putting all of those pieces together. A guy that almost got it done last year, Justin Haley, finishing up in the runner-up spot, gives us a preview of Chicago for this weekend.
Justin Haley, we talk about him a lot, flies under the radar, always makes something out of the day. Look at that 51 right there, Justin Haley.
Car's flying.
Joined in studio by Justin Haley, who finished runner-up in last year's Chicago Street Course. So we thought you'd be the perfect person to help us preview the weekend. As we look at this course, 12 turns, which areas provide the most problems?
All of them. I mean, it's a tricky course. So turn 4 is definitely kind of the sweet spot where it's a fast sweeping right-hand corner, lots of bumps there. But yeah, last year it was really rainy. It was like a hurricane out there. So hopefully this year it's dry and we can have some side-by-side racing and side-by-side restarts. We had single file starts last year, so hopefully this year is even better.
I was going to ask, so NASCAR mandated single file starts because of the weather last year. Are you going to have to be a little bit more cautious on the double file restarts? Is it going to be mayhem? Like, what are you predicting?
I don't know if you've watched the restarts lately, but I don't think any of us are cautious. So it's just going to provide more room to improve your position. So we're going to be as aggressive as ever. Unfortunately, the walls are a little closed in this weekend as they usually wouldn't be, but we're going to be aggressive. We always are, and we have to go out there and win races, and that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I know everybody's looking forward to hopefully dry weather. Right now the forecast looks good. If we see clear conditions, how different collectively, not just the restarts, but collectively will the race look, do you think, from last year?
I mean, it's just going to be faster paced, right? It's going to be super difficult to pass, as always, as it always is in a cup race. But the side-by-side restarts, I feel like there's going to be a lot more passes. Although they're difficult to make, I feel like last year there was only kind of one dry line. Everything else was super wet. So, this year should be a little bit more racy, should be fun. And hopefully it sounds like it's going to be dry.
So we've talked about obviously the double file restarts. We've talked about, turn 4 being a problem. But as you look at the race collectively as a whole, whether it's the length or the course or pit stops, they're going to be backwards. What to you provides the biggest opportunity and then is the biggest challenge?
I think what's good is we've been there, right?
Yeah.
I think it was such a shock last year for the whole industry that you almost couldn't focus on the race car or the race because the garage was on a street and the drivers' meeting was here and everything was different, right? You weren't in your motorhome, you were in a hotel, you were walking, it was raining. So I feel like this year the initial shock of the whole street circuit is kind of gone, right? We know the lay of the land, we've been there. We know where our garage is, so now we can go and focus on the racing and the race cars.
All right, and finally, let's talk about the fan experience there. I know there was wet weather last year, but it seemed like, there were opportunities for fans to run into drivers just literally on the streets of Chicago. What was your takeaway from just being kind of immersed in the city?
It was different.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we walked from our hotel the same path as everyone else, and it's just cool. It's something different. Like I said, the initial shock will be completely gone, but it's still such a cool event that we're putting on and something different than the standard mile and a half that we go to every weekend. So it's a good change of pace, especially in the summertime, and I think we're all looking forward to it.
We appreciate the time. Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
As we look at Justin Haley's career day last year in Chicago, I can't help but think he was in a Collin car then.
Yeah.
He's gone over to Rick Rare Racing, and this team has been so strong each and every week.
Yeah, and you think about his crew chief, Chris Lawson. He is a championship truck series crew chief, now trying to figure out the ways of the Cup Series, and I think that pairing has been so good. I'm excited to see what they're able to for the rest of the season. And that second place finish last year, he held off SVG for a very long time.
Yeah, and there's another guy that is a Truck Series champion that's tired of, I think, of finishing second place, and that's Sheldon Creed. Do you think he can punch his ticket into victory lane this weekend?
Ooh, I don't know. It's going to be hard because the field is stacked with a number of Cup Series drivers, but we're taking a look back at some of those close calls. Again, he's got 10 runner-up finishes right now, tied for the most runner-up finishes without a win. If he gets one more, he's going to break the record because right now he's tied with Daniel Hemrick and Dale Jarrett.
I bet he is sick of finishing second. I know some people think second is okay, but when you have finished second 10 times without punching your ticket to victory lane, it is brutal.
Yeah, I know he's frustrated, but it almost is like he sees it as a strength because no other driver has that many seconds in the same amount of time. So I think we should celebrate it.
I don't know. I think if you had him in here, he would not be celebrating that at all, but it'll make his celebration in victory lane that much sweeter when he does punch his ticket into victory lane. He'll get there eventually.
Yeah.
It's been so many close calls as we've seen. He's just gonna, I feel like the floodgates will open once he wins one. He might be able to win 5.
And he's been able to do it with multiple teams. Last year he was with RCR, and talking with his crew chief last year, Jeff Stankiewicz, he said mid-season Sheldon really reflected on how he was racing his racecraft and decided to kind of change his approach and make sure he wasn't putting himself in compromising situations like we could kind of see him. But then he moves to JGR, and we're seeing multiple runner-up finishes with that team as well. So he has proved he's a strong driver regardless of the team.
Well, I'm looking forward to when he gets his first win with those JGR boys.
Maybe he'll have to come in the studio and celebrate with us.
That'd be good.
All right. Well, after the break, I catch up with Erica to get the best bets for the Chicago Street Course.
Join Todd Gordon and myself each week for NASCAR Inside the Race. We'll break down exactly how the race was won.
Plus, we'll dive into the data and go in depth on race strategies, penalties, and rule changes.
Catch NASCAR Inside the Race presented by Consumer Cellular each Tuesday on NASCAR's YouTube channel.
All right, it's time for Easy Money with E, so we will welcome in our resident sports betting analyst, Erica, to get a preview of the Chicago Street Course. But as we look back at last weekend, Erica, man, if people had bets placed, I bet they were sweating their 5 overtime restarts, the most in Cup Series history. People wondering what is going to happen.
Honestly, I had no idea. I could not have bet $1 million and gotten this right, and that was going to be the outcome of that race. And so with that in mind, our best bets were not as easy as I like for them to be, but we're going to get back on track. We're going to get back on track this week. Luckily, the week before, we did really, really well, but this is going to be our get right week again, get back in the winner's circle for Chicago. Do want to say this, though. We literally have a sample size of 1 for Chicago, Kim. So I'm finding that odds makers are leaning kind of more into the drivers who performed well last year more than anything else, which makes sense. So that's what I'm going to lean into, some of the drivers who performed well last year as we do our Chicago best bets.
All right. Hopefully the Windy City takes us in a positive direction with our bets this weekend. So let's jump right in. Group bets for Chicago.
So there's a group that has Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., William Byron, and AJ Allmendinger. I'm going to take William Byron at plus 300 to win this group. Now, I went back and forth about this, Kim, between AJ and Willie B. I'm going to go with Willie B because Byron has finished top 2 in 3 of the last 4 road course races. And then when it comes to teams who performed well at road course races, Hendrick has the most all-time wins at 29. If you really, really, really want to break it down, you look at Byron's crew chief and then look at AJ's. AJ's crew chief has 1 win at a road course, and then Byron's has 2. And I know there's only a difference of 1, but when it comes to, a street race like Chicago, strategy is going to be key. And I feel like Byron has that leg up. So those are the reasons I'm backing Byron. How about you? Who would you back in this spot?
Well, I do think William Byron is a solid pick, but he's not going to be my pick. That's because he and crew chief Rudy Fugle, they've been a little inconsistent recently. So I'm going to look towards his teammate Chase Elliott. And like you mentioned, Hendrick Motorsports, impeccable when it comes to road course racing. And so although the payout's not going to be as big, I feel more confident about Chase Elliott.
So we have to see how this plays out between the two of us, Kim.
All right, we're going to go head-to-head. So speaking of that, let's see what drivers are going head-to-head at Chicago.
Yeah, well, there's a head-to-head that I like between Daniel Suarez and Kyle Busch, where both of them are minus 110. So this is essentially a toss-up, but I'm going to back Daniel Suarez at minus 110, where a $10 bet wins you a total of $19 and some change. And listen, bettors everywhere need to be aware of Kyle Busch, and they need to be fading him because he's having the worst season of his career. Now, if you want to take a literal gamble on Kyle Busch, you can, because he has 6 top 10 finishes at road courses in the next-gen car. But also look at Daniel Suarez, Kim, who has 4 top 5 finishes in the next-gen car at road courses. But then back to Busch, he actually has 5 in that category. But more than anything, Busch is having the year from hell. So I'm going to back Suarez in this spot. Actually, he was also one of my sleeper picks at the beginning of the season. So I got to keep riding with him.
I love that you're straight up with us. You didn't mince any words there. All right, and finally, let's get E's top picks for the weekend.
So for my top picks, I'm looking at SVG to be a top 5 finisher at minus 120, Tyler Reddick to be a top 5 finisher at plus 100, and then Chris Buescher to be a top 10 finisher at minus 120. Now, SVG, as we know, won the inaugural race last year at Chicago, and he has the most street course racing of any of the drivers in the field. So at minus 120, I think that's pretty good value. I haven't found it any longer than that. And then for Reddick, he is plus 100. You guys know I love to throw some money on the plus money side when it makes sense, and this is a spot where plus 100 top 5 finisher for Reddick definitely makes sense. Last year he had he finished last year he finished 28th, but he did have 2 top 3 finishes in those stages until he hit the tire barrier. So blame it on the rain. This year he'll get it better. And then finally, Chris Buescher, minus 120, top 10. He actually finished in the top 10 at this race last year as well. Again, fully transparent moment, Kim. I really, really in my heart wanted to throw out some top 10 odds for both Reddick and SVG, but they were like minus 350, minus 280. So I could not do that to you. That's, people don't want to really lay money on those short odds. But if you just want to see one go through the hoop, maybe you want to place a little bit of money there, but better value is on these odds and or on their outright odds. Reddick's plus 600, SVG is at plus 700 right now.
Well, Erica, great information you provided us for this weekend's best bets, and folks can tune in to your social media for bonus bets, right, later in the week?
Yeah, I'm going to have some bonus bets for you guys, but make sure you shop around either for my bonus bets and for the best bets, because I have found some crazy variants across different sports books. I found SVG as short as plus 550 as an outright winner. I gave you the number here at plus 700. You want to get the best bang for your buck. Do not leave any money on the table for the sports books. Take all of your cash. So shop around, and yes, look out for my bonus bets toward the end of the week.
All right, we'll check in with you next week to preview Pocono. And after the break, Ryan and I will help set your fantasy lineup for the Chicago Street Course.
Hey guys, I'm Corey the Joy Driver, the number 7 car, joined my buddy Ryan Flores. Every week we stack some pennies. Talk about NASCAR Cup Series right out of my windshield.
Plus, we'll give out the dogs of the week for the best pit crews and pit crew guys from the weekend. We'll break down all the money stops, all the woes, get into some technical issues, and we'll also answer all of your hashtag Penny for Your Thoughts questions.
And we have a ton of guests. Sometimes SVG pops by. We got Raja. We have all sorts of guys. You never know who's going to pop in the Nonsense Garage, but make sure you tune in. SiriusXM on Tuesdays, YouTube on Wednesdays, wherever you find your podcast on Wednesdays as well. Come stack pennies with us.
So who is your best value pick for your fantasy league?
I've got Miles, my guy.
Yeah, we took a gamble this weekend.
Luck or the lack thereof. It's a big factor here today.
Listen to me out there, gamblers.
That's big, baby.
All right, it's time to pick your fantasy lineup. We've done the research for you. So let's start with your 3 must-haves for Chicago Street Course.
Well, first one I'm going with Tyler Reddick, right? He's got 3 road course wins, 10 top 10s in the last 12 road course races. And last year here, he started second.
Yeah.
He got stage points in both stages. He's been in the top 3 in both stages.
But then he found that tire barrier.
Had a little bit of trouble at the end, but he's going to get you points. He's been great.
Yeah.
Second one, Kyle Larson. We saw what he did at Sonoma. HMS has won 3 of the last 4 road course races. He has 5 road course wins himself. He's a dog.
Yeah.
He's always going to be there. And the
And
last
finally?
one, SVG.
Oh.
Duh.
Duh.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say. If you don't have SVG in your lineup this weekend, I can't help you.
Okay, well, I also have him in my lineup. So
Let's
I feel
go.
like that is a resounding cry to put SVG in your lineup. Like you said, duh. Also, you forget, he's not going after a driver's championship, so strategy-wise, they can kind of do whatever they want. Then I also have Christopher Bell in my lineup. He has finished top 10 in both the road course races this season, and he and Adam Stevens, I know they didn't have the finish they wanted last weekend, but they swept the stages before that. They've just been so strong. In fact, Adam said if they started the playoffs right now, they would feel comfortable, so I think he's a safe pick. And then Michael McDowell. We know he's good on road courses, and then I think Travis Peterson will do anything to win, so he's going to be really aggressive on the call.
Well, Michael showed at Loudon that he'll do anything to win too. So, yeah, they're definitely always aggressive, and there's going to be some aggressive activities at Chicago this weekend.
yeah.
There's a lot going on. Julie Giese and her group have Chicago dialed up for this weekend. What are you looking forward to the most?
Well, the thing is, it almost feels like a race that's in the middle of a festival because there's so much to do for fans and casual fans and core fans alike. I'm excited for the music. Obviously, the Black Keys and the Chainsmokers. We didn't get to see them last year because of the weather, but they are back this year, so they're going to blow everybody away with their performance, I think.
And Monster has a freestyle motocross show. There's a Chicago History Museum exhibit all weekend. NASCARChicago.com also has an awesome interactive map where you can log on there and it takes you through the whole lay of the land, tells you everything that's going on. So go visit NASCARChicago.com for more.
Yeah, I also like there was a NASCAR day on July 5th at the Cubs, so a little sports crossover.
Speaking of sports crossovers, that brings us to our white flag.
Okay.
The NASCAR Cup Series, Kim, raced at Soldier Field in 1956.
Okay.
They had a couple races, but they had one Cup race.
Okay.
Who won it?
I knew that they had a race. I knew it was in the 50s. Didn't they race on wood, too?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I know they raced on wood, but I don't know if they raced at Soldier Field on wood.
Okay.
But this guy is a popular racer with a really cool name.
Oh, God. I have no idea. Tell me.
Fireball Roberts.
Oh, I
Yep.
could have gotten that.
Yeah, so
You know what you should have told me? You should have said, give it a shot.
Oh.
Like, give me a guess. Give it a shot. And that would have probably clued me in on it.
Yeah, there's also convertible races there. Guys like Glenn Wood won that. So a lot of cool history in Chicago. It's really cool to be in the city, and we'll see who wins this weekend.
Yeah, I can't wait. So thanks for tuning in to Around the Track as we previewed Chicago Street Course. But next week we're headed to
The Tricky Triangle.
We'll break down everything Pocono Raceway next week. We'll see you then.